How you doing? TikTok does this all the time. I do not know why. I don't know why.
Very good with the social media, so.
Clearly, I'm not good either. Clearly. But thank you for coming on. Oh my God.
Of course.
Your book. Oh my God.
Did you like it?
Whew. Loved it. Loved it. Top book of the year for me. Oh my God.
Wow.
So
Ooh,
good. So good.
thank you so much.
So I'm gonna do my introduction. Then I'm gonna ask you, who you are, what genre you write in, and anything you want them to know before we get started. So
Sounds
you
good to me.
ready?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So today on the podcast, we sit down with someone whose voice has echoed across all of our social media screens, and now across pages. Markus Redmond, known for his work in front of the camera, because I did my research, and has shifted the lens inward and towards the past, weaving a bold multi POV story rooted in Black history, steeped in supernatural elements, and layered in truth. His new book challenges what we think we know about freedom, kinfolk, and spiritual warfare in the time of slavery. Welcome, Markus.
Ooh, thank you. Thank you for having me. Spiritual warfare. I love that.
That's what I got. That's what I got. I don't know about nobody else, but that's what I got. That's
I
what I
love it.
got because there was some deep stuff happening.
Yeah, yeah. It
It
was
was
it was a little
It was
intense.
intense.
Yeah.
So tell us who you are, tell us the genre you write in, and tell us anything you want us to know before I start asking you questions.
Okay, cool. Thank you, first of all, for having me. It's a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you for the support you've shown the book and the enthusiasm. I am Markus Redmond still. I started off as an actor, and then I moved into screenwriting, and then I moved into independent filmmaking, and then none of that stuff seemed to pop. Uh,
Mm,
Decided that I was going to write a book in the pandemic. The book I was writing is very different from the book that is out,
mhm.
um, but it is my first novel. This is my debut novel, and I think folks should know it is the first of a series. Kensington Publishing gave me a free book deal, so this is the first volume. There are at least three more to come.
I look forward to that. I look forward to that. All right. So you started your journey in acting and directing. How did that creative foundation and life itself bring you here to authorship?
I feel like what was great about being an actor first uh, is just sort of the wealth of character work you have to do as an actor. There's obviously there's work on the script on paper, but you still have to bring that character to life. You got to
Mhm.
infuse it with something real, something that is you. I had an acting coach tell me before that acting is just your emotions dressed
Mhm.
up in someone else's words. So there's still that type of sort of character work that needs to be done. And I feel like having been an actor, it was easier maybe for me
Mhm.
to infuse my characters with real stakes, real conflict. I did very specifically want, knowing it was going to be a vampire story, I wanted the romance, sort of love story, to be much more realistic, much more relatable. I love vampires, but you
Yeah.
know, old dudes chasing teenage girls. So that's creepy. I wanted to do something that was a little more, real, like an actual relationship that is affected by this
Mhm.
vampirism, this choice that Willie has to make. And I think that really came from working with actors and doing film and all of that stuff.
Can I say that this doesn't feel like your first book? This does not feel like your first book. So I just want to say that. So, was storytelling something that always was always in you, even before the scripts and the sets?
Yes. So technically, this isn't my first book. Technically, I was 8 years old, um, and I was handwriting this book that I called my own, as a kid because it was just fun. And then one day, my mom cleaned my room, and she threw it out because she thought it was trash.
Oh.
So we're still working that out, me and her. But yeah, I've kind of always liked telling stories. I've always kind of been like a loner kid. I was always like the weird kid, like the kid that liked music and metal and all of that. So I was writing stories and coming up with little things in my head and characters. That was always happening in my head. So acting would be like the natural progression of it.
Yeah. So, what moment or revelation made you pick up the pen and write this particular story?
Hmm. 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 So I was working on a completely different vampire story
Mm-hmm.
when I started this, and it wasn't coming together.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2020, and I saw the footage of George Floyd get murdered,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody was mad, and everybody was like protesting, and everybody was going outside in the middle of the pandemic when everybody was saying we need to stop this from happening. So let's do this now. We won't have COVID for the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I got really mad at the people who were mad
Mm.
because George Floyd gets murdered by police and it's awful. But where was all that vitriol before? He wasn't the first one. You know what I mean? It was like he wasn't a person to these people. It was like, oh, I'm tired of Trump. I'm tired of being inside. I'm going to go outside now, and I have the righteous reason to do so. And it's like, you don't really care about George. And then that made me mad, right? You have this kid, Kyle Rittenhouse, who goes over to a neighboring town, kills a bunch of people. George is dead. Kyle is alive, crying in the courtroom, gets off, and then he's like selling a book. And I'm like, so George has to be dead, and this dude gets to sell a book? Like that's not a system that works, and it pissed me off.
Right.
I'm telling this to my wife, who knows I'm trying to work on this vampire book. She says, it's too bad your vampires can't go back in time and fix everything if you start. You go to bed, I wake up the next morning, blood slaves in my head. It's just there now. So that's how this happened.
So, in your own words, how do you see the historical and supernatural intertwining, especially in the context of Black storytelling?
For me, I've always loved vampires. I've just not really understood certain aspects. Not mystical aspects, but just like logistics. If I'm a vampire and I eat humans, why am I hiding from humans? Why would I do that? Why am I hiding in the shadows from my food? If I go to barbecue, I don't hide from the grill. I'm going to eat the food on the grill. Why am I hiding? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. So you would get together with your vampire buddies. You'd be like, hey, there's like, billions of people. We got plenty of food. Let's take over, make sure everything happens at night, and we'll run this. So that was the first piece. And then the second piece was, again, vampires, this power. It's like this incredible power. And what do? Right? In the Vampire Diaries or whatever, we're just like skulking around in leather coats. And then I'm 200 years old, and then I see a 16-year-old, and I'm like, oh, now I have a reason to live. let me do this. I'm like, what? Like, there's so much to do, right? You know what I mean? You're just gonna be a creep for eternity. Like, what happens when she hits 19? You gonna find another 16-year-old?
Oh, wow.
And it creeps nobody out. Nobody gets creeped out about this. I'm the only one, apparently. So I was like, well, what if we took this and turned it into something that needs to be avenged?
Mm-hmm.
And if there's anything in American history that needs avengement, I don't know if that's a word, but I just said it. Sometimes you just make up words. I mean, slavery has never been avenged.
Yeah.
In real life or in fiction. Because when you see a slavery narrative, it's like suffer, 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 die.
Mm-hmm.
Or suffer, 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 Brad Pitt shows up. Hey guys, this ain't right. And then we die.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. There's no rage. There's no just like, and the thing is, like, especially when you're talking about slavery, it was brutal. Like, the stuff in the book is brutal.
Mm-hmm.
I got absolutely, it's horrible and brutal. There's so much stuff that was worse that I left out. You know what I mean? Like, there was, and that's the thing. Like, they don't tell us about slavery. They say, oh, well, this happened and it was bad, but everything's good now.
Right.
Like, they don't tell us the things that happened. They don't tell us the things that were done, the cannibalism, the things that were done to infants.
Mm-hmm.
If a slave woman got pregnant, she would murder the baby. Now think about that. It's so bad that you will murder your child. That's not a good life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it has to be incredibly horrible for you to make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
So when it came time for the book, it's the same thing. A vampire, no disrespect to Stephanie Meyer, but these are not sparkly vampires. Okay, these are vicious, bloodthirsty creatures. Mm-hmm. And you have to decide. You have to say, okay, my life is so bad that I am going to choose to die and then come back a monster that subsists on blood. So I have to kill to live for eternity. That's not a light decision. You know what I mean? Like, things have to be really bad for you to say, this is what I'm going to do. And that decision, that's the crust of the conflict between Willie and Gertie in the book.
Yeah, I can see that. Your writing carries a haunting resonance, almost reminiscent of Octavia Butler.
Oh,
was that influence intentional or organic?
You know what? I wish I could say it was intentional, but I mean, I literally, it was only organic. I tell people this all the time. I wrote the book, but I'm not sure I wrote the book. What I mean by that, when this idea came to me, I mean, it was just downloaded. So, like, day one of writing, I'm writing this thing. And my wife's like, what's happening? What do you mean? It's like, I don't know. I'm just writing. And I didn't have any notes. I didn't put together an outline. I didn't do cue cards. I didn't do any of that. I just dug in because I just knew what the story was. I would write all day until I got tired. Go to sleep. My wife's like, what are you going to write tomorrow? I didn't know. I don't know. I don't know. It felt good. I don't know. And then when I woke up the next day, the next piece was there. And the same thing kept happening every day for 44 days. And then I had my first draft. So people talk about
sometimes they say the ancestors speak through you, Just saying. So, so what is it about Supernatural that speaks so well to the legacy of Black trauma, resistance, and survival?
I think it's power. You
Mm,
know, it's just power because like so much that has happened to us through the centuries has
mm,
left us powerless, right? And the idea of power, power that is untapped, untold, unlimited, coming from our ancestors, our
mhm.
home, our history, right? Like that was the thing to me. I was like, how, why, why, why do vampires have to be from Europe?
That's a good question.
Because if you look at the history, like not necessarily history, but the mythology of the
Yeah.
creature that we know, the
Hmm.
vampire, it's all over the world.
Yep.
It's all over the world.
Hmm.
And the Ramonda comes from the vampire creature that the people of Madagascar believed in. That's where
Mm,
I came. So
mm,
it, we've got we've got African history. Why couldn't it have been possible for the first vampires to have been from West Africa? Maybe that's
mm.
where you
I
maybe it
mean, the
started.
civilization of the civilization, the beginning started in Africa.
Right,
No matter how anybody want to put it, it all started there. It all started there. So a lot of these mythos are just a reproduction of African myths, African legend, African folklore, whitewash, European style. So
right,
I get that. I really
right.
get that. So what does folklore, specifically Black spiritual folklore, hold hold such storytelling power in historical spaces?
I think because honestly, very few people know about it. Very few
Mm,
people. So it sounds new, right? Because you
yeah.
never heard of it. Because we know what the European stories are, right?
Right.
Hans Christian Andersen, like the Grimm brothers, like we know
Mm-hmm.
what all we know those Greek mythology, Roman mythology, like we
Mm-hmm.
know all of them. But like if you start looking into African mythology, and trust me, like I am no expert.
Mm-hmm.
Like I did research that I needed to do, and there's so much more out there. But a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the stories that you see in Greek mythology, Roman mythology, there's similar stories in African mythology. So, you know, who wrote it first?
That is a good question. I
Who
say
wrote it
all the
first?
time, Medusa was never a white woman with snakes in her hair. She was a black root woman who was with locks that protected her people. And they gave her that title as they did Amazons.
Mm-hmm.
Jose Mino was considered, the original Amazons, but they whitewashed it and turned them into these tall Barbie dolls.
Well, I mean, the I actually get into this in the second book.
Mm,
Uh, and that's the thing I think people should know too. This is a series. There is going to be more books.
mm,
So we're going to dive more into the original origin of the Ramonda, like how that happened, how it came
mm.
to be, because there's a whole story behind that.
Right.
Um, but like you talk about this mythology and
Mm,
the history of it, and then you talk about lands, and you talk about names, and you
mm.
talk about the fact that Africa is not the indigenous name,
Absolutely not.
right?
Absolutely not.
Nobody talks about Akabulan,
No,
which is the indigenous name of the land,
it is.
right?
It
So it's
is.
like, what are we really talking about? You know, we're African Americans. Okay, but I've never been to Africa. And also, here's the other thing that always trips me out: African American. I am personally. I've never heard anybody call themselves European American.
No.
There's always a country. There's always a country. You know what I mean? German American, Italian American, French American. But Africa gets treated like this big old plot of thing. It's all the same.
Mm-hmm.
Never mind, what, 48 countries?
Mm-hmm. Give or take. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like there's no sense of interest in, well, what's on that continent?
Right.
Most people probably couldn't name 4 countries in there.
And that's sad.
You know what I mean?
That's sad.
And you look at the top of the country. You look at the top of the continent. You got Egypt. The bottom you have South Africa, and they're wildly, vastly different. You know what I mean? But everybody sort of thinks of Africa as being the same. With all the dust and sand and stuff, and it's like
it's not. It's not. Do you believe there's an ancestral memory embedded in how we imagine spirits, gods, or power beyond this world? You talked about the ring circle when they had their celebration, something that a lot of people don't understand that slaves did. You talked about their celebration and how it was just a small joy for them. And then you brought in the Christianity part of the interpretation of the Bible from the overseers and the masters' lens compared to, their own spirituality. Can you talk more about that? Do you believe there's an ancestral memory embedded in how we imagine spirits, gods, or just the power beyond?
I mean, I think if you are open to it or aware of it, I mean, honestly, I certainly know in my younger years, I didn't know any of this stuff. Nobody ever told me. You know what I mean? My parents didn't tell it to me. I didn't know anything about it. And I think that's part of you can't even really call it a problem, right? It's just what it is. It's like, if you don't know, you don't know.
It's like sinners. It's like sinners, how they didn't recognize the power within them through music.
Right.
And how it went back towards the past and the future and the present. Right. And it called the people on so many levels, even those that wasn't even of the same race as them.
Well, this is growing up, right? I get all kind of flack because I love metal, love rock, like hard rock. That song that you had on
that's my favorite workout song.
That's Disturbed. I mean, I love that. Like every song on that album, like honestly, most of the songs on that album, if you were to listen to the lyrics of those songs, a lot of them have the vibe of Blood Slaves.
Because I can see that.
You know what I mean? It's like rebel. It's animalistic rebel. Like
I can see that in System of a Down.
Yes. See what I'm saying? But like, I would get flack for that, right? But then, like, if you go back in time, like, where did rock start? It started with Sister Rosetta Tharpe.
Yep.
Black woman, just thrashing on the guitar. You know what I mean? Like, and it's rebel music. Rebel music. How did rebel music get disassociated from us and given to white folks? Rebel music? Really?
Yeah.
Like, if anybody's gonna be like smashing guitars on a stage.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so, I think you know what you know.
Yeah.
And hope you're open to learning anything. And if you can be open to it, I think that sort of opens you up to that type of influence. And after that, who's to say?
Let's talk about Willie.
Okay.
He carried the weight of awakening, almost like a Nat Turner S type figure, but he also wrestled with personal truth. How did you shape that journey?
the whole thing with Willie, um, the first thing I knew about Willie was I knew that there was going to have to be sort of like an identity awakening,
Mm-hmm.
uh, because obviously Willie is not his name.
No.
Uh, so I knew we were going to go down the path where he was going to rediscover his name, and in
Mm.
doing so, rediscover himself.
Mm.
He's spent more than half of his life in bondage,
Mm-hmm.
and he's learned to just survive. And I think a lot of us do that. I know I did. I mean, my whole keep the head down, don't make too much of a fuss, don't like, I don't need the smoke, right? So just, you know what I mean? Like let me just, and I think that a lot of that came from me in my own journey in life, and then sort of recognizing, wait a minute, like, because, I spent so much of my life
Mm.
rising above racism, right?
Mm.
Because if I were to succumb to it, then I would just be a victim
Yeah.
or the angry black man, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I spend my time, I'm not going to let it affect me. I'm not going to let it affect me. I'm not going to let it affect me. In writing this book, they asked me to write the letter to readers.
Yeah.
In writing that, um, I just recorded it for the audiobook. And
Mm-hmm.
that was the first time that I could read it without breaking down. I can just
Yeah.
put it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think you sort of see that in Willie. You
Yeah.
know, my mom used to say, "I laugh to keep from crying,"
Mm.
and I think a lot of that got infused in Willie and what he's got to do and who he is.
So let me ask you this. Willie had, because he was such a deep, layered character, even though everybody's POV was around him, his his journey, his journey from I am just angry because I'm in bondage to I gotta do something because I gotta protect her to this is bigger than the both of us. How did that become the layers of his journey?
Well, I think you take the story, right, and you're looking at, like, it just became this authentic thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's a guy. His name is David Greenwald. David Greenwald was one of the executive producers of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He created Angel,
Mm-hmm.
created Grimm. He was a writing mentor of mine many
Mm-hmm.
years. He taught me the law of inevitability. And the law of inevitability in writing states that if A happens, inevitably B would happen,
Mm-hmm.
as would C, as would D, continue. So you're kind of always thinking, all right, what's the next logical thing?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to take this blood, what am I taking with it?
Mm-hmm.
Responsibility. That's the very first thing you're going to take is responsibility. So what are you going to do? You're going to run off? Because Rafazi could just run off, but he didn't, right? So now Willie has the blood. And
Mm-hmm.
Rafazi's there saying, hey, I'll teach you. Okay, cool. But I'm just going to run off with Gertie and leave everybody else? Like,
Right.
there's a responsibility now. That became the thing. It's like, it's more than just us.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
Yeah.
and this is the way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I feel like, I know there's been a lot of comparisons to Sinners. And I feel like that thread was in Sinners. And I think that might count for some of the comparisons because, you know, when Stat goes to smoke, he's like, this is the way.
Yeah.
They were always going to hunt us down.
Mm-hmm.
this is it. This is it.
Yeah.
And what really comes to it, and I think just the inevitability of that decision and that choice has to lead him to being a leader because Rafazi refuses to be so. You know?
I think with your book, it ties in so many layers from Octavia Butler, from Beloved, from Sinners. It just ties in so many aspects because what we think of how a house slave was is contradicted with what you say, and it makes so much sense. Same with those that were allegedly friends or in the struggle with them, but really were not. So you chose to give many characters their own POV. Why was that important for this story?
I thought it was important for the story because, you know, listen, I come from movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't necessarily need a POV because you kind of get to see wherever you can cut a camera. And here we go, and we see that, and we see this, so you understand more. With a book, you can't really do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we're only looking at Willie, there's only so much we can see. So to broaden the scope, it was important for Gertie to have her own POV, especially because her whole idea of survival is in direct opposition to his.
Yeah.
It was important for Irene to have her own POV so that we could see what was going on inside the house.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing about all of those different POVs as well is just to sort of show, like, it was just awful. It was worse than we could have ever known.
Yeah.
Just, slavery was just so much worse than you were taught in school.
Yeah.
Than they showed you in movies or wrote in books. Like, it was horrific. It was horrific.
Yeah.
The things that these overseers did, especially on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
You know, and I only had to write it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Folks only have to read it. Imagine the people that had to live through it, that had to survive it day to day to day to day. People don't talk about the breathing room.
Charlie scene took me out. Charlie scene, that I had to put it down for a second and collect myself.
But that was not only real, but it wasn't rare. Like, that just happened.
Yeah.
It was a normal thing. And they don't talk about these things. They don't tell us about these things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just it's the whole idea that you are not your own person. So if a woman gets pregnant, that's not her child.
Yeah.
That's the man's.
And he said that. He said that. He said, if you leave, you're stealing from me. If you're mine, you leave, you're stealing from me.
Exactly. And that's what the breeding rooms, we call it side hustle today. That was extra side income. Let me make these slaves sleep together. We'll breed them. We'll raise the children. We'll snatch them away from their parents. We'll put them in the manor. We'll have the house slaves, like, you know, care for them and raise them. And then we'll put them back in the field. Okay, there's no family. There's no marriage. There's none of that. None of that exists. It's just like, this is more property that I can sell off. Like that's insane. But that's what it was. And it was a daily thing. It wasn't like, oh, well, you know, it's September, so this is rape season. No, like, it was a daily thing that people, and then you get up the next day and you go on the field. And you do your work, and you fill your quota, or you get the whip. Daily.
So, was it necessary for you to show this from both the house and field perspective? What were you hoping readers would feel with that?
I wanted people to understand that bondage wasn't in like levels
Mm-hmm.
or tiers. It wasn't like, oh well, you're in the house, so you've got it good. It's like no, it's like Irene says. They get mad, who's right in front of them?
Mm.
In the house. Like
Mm-hmm.
they'll trek out into the field, or they can just beat us, or
Mm.
rape us, or take
Mm.
whatever they want from us here in their house. And I felt like, again, because I was never a fan of slave stories,
Mm-hmm.
ever. But I'm like, if I'm going to show this, especially knowing what's going to happen, knowing that the vengeance is going to be as brutal as it is, has to be justified.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be justified, but it also has to be authentic. And unfortunately, it wasn't a stretch to be authentic to
Mm.
make sure it was,
Damn.
I didn't make stuff up.
You definitely didn't, but it's, I just think it's a hard pill to swallow when reality smacks you in your face for anybody, especially,
Yeah,
our realities,
yeah,
our history. We're Americans, yes, but we got a long history with our lineage,
yeah,
and it's brutal.
yeah.
It's
It
brutal.
is.
So you didn't shy away from showing that not all kinfolk is skinfolk. Why was that a distinction that was vital in your story?
Because it's real. I mean, it's real, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. I know my experience. I've known derbies.
Mm-hmm.
I've known,
I think we all have.
you know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. And
Mm-hmm.
again, and I'm the first to admit, I was a victim of this. When you live in a dominant society
Mm-hmm.
and you're told that all of the people that look like you trash,
Mm.
you, you're okay. You're a good one. Like you're a little better than the rest of
Mm-hmm.
them. You live in a dominant culture, that can feel good.
Mm.
It can make you feel like, oh, there's something special about me.
Mm-hmm.
And that, of course, that's by design, right? Again, another thing that I left out. They would do this on plantations. They would single out a slave and say, hey, you do good work, you're good, we're going to give you better accommodations, we're going to take that Negro cloth off of you, give you better clothes, we're going to give you better food, you don't have to eat the mush, you're going to be a driver. You are going to be the one that's going to serve as the de facto overseer
Mm.
to this group of slaves on the field. So now you've got African yelling, screaming, beating African. So like the
Mm.
overseer. That happened. They call them drivers. This is what happens on plantation. So it's like, what's her name? Candace Owens?
Ugh.
But
Yeah, 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 yeah.
it's like everything is plain as day. But she's out here saying, no, no, no. Y'all have it wrong. Like, uh-huh. Okay. All right. Thanks, Candace.
So how do you research or interpret the dynamics between enslaved people with the plantation system?
You know what? Here's the weird part. Wasn't that difficult?
Mm.
It's not hard to find this stuff. It's just very few are looking. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I mean, there's so much information on the internet even about the dynamics of plantation work
Mm.
and what happened to the house slaves versus the field slaves and who would move up and who would prosper and who would get like beaten down and just all of the dynamics. It was really easy to find the information.
Mm.
Fortunately, my dear friend Renita Irvin, she has a PhD in slavery studies.
Mm.
So I was able to go to her with things I was finding to like verify it.
Mm.
Um, and she made sure that all of my stuff was on point, making sure I had all of the history correct. Because knowing where it's going, I wanted the first half of the book to be very rooted in historical facts.
Mm.
Like I wanted it to be very clear, like this is what it was, this is how things happen. And then slowly I'm introducing this new element of the Ramunga that flips everything on its head. But
Mm.
I wanted to feel like a historical account, like a
Yeah.
real historical document of how things work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, what truths about slavery and humanity did you want to push to the forefront that uh, often gets glossed over in historical fiction?
Um, Probably the most important thing that I wanted to show
Mm.
was how brutal we can be,
Mm.
human to human. Like we can just, I mean, we're seeing it now.
Yeah.
We're, I mean, I'm in LA. I'm seeing it now. Like
Yeah.
the capacity for brutality from one human to the next. You know, everybody likes to say, "Oh, but you know, I believe everybody is good. I believe everybody is a good person." We are savages. Society is this neat little trick that they've played
Hmm.
to sort of say, "Oh, you can be civil," but when the gloves come off and the shit gets real, we can be horrendously brutal.
Yeah.
And I got to come across, and I also wanted to come across how important it is that we fight that urge, and B, how important it is to fight for our humanity. I
Mm.
feel like that's what Willie's doing the entire second half of the book
Yeah.
because he's so in love with blood
Hmm.
once and it's almost the end of him.
Yeah.
He almost loses himself to savagery like several times, and he has to recenter himself, and he has to fight for that piece of him that is real, that piece of him that is going to save Gertie, that piece of him that is a human being, that piece of
Hmm.
him that's going to save his people. It is important that we remember that we remind ourselves of that. And that is something Willie is going to have to do for the remainder of his existence. Because it's so easy to just be done.
You brought in similarities. You brought in when Willie and how do you say his name?
Oh, Rafazi.
Rafati. You brought
Mm-hmm.
in uh Willie and Rafati. I'm not saying Willie's other name because I don't want to give it away. But you brought in Naz, an indigenous native of the land.
Yeah. Nez,
And,
yeah.
and you brought in the struggles in which the slaves were going through and that similarity with them getting their land taken. So, why was that important to incorporate that one particular chapter in the book?
I don't think it's proper or right to tell the story of this land. I'm not going to say America because in the book, this is 1710. America
Mm-hmm.
doesn't happen until 1776, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's in America. Those folks still considered themselves British at
Yeah.
that point in time, right? But this land, I don't think it's right if we're going to talk about this land and not talk about the indigenous people who were here. I
Mm-hmm.
just don't think you can tell it appropriately without including it. Now, obviously, I'm not telling their story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and as things progress, we will hear more from them.
Mm.
Um,
Okay.
but I just, you look at America now,
Mm-hmm.
and we talk about the Black experience. We talk about white folks.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about hate. We talk about the Hispanic community, the Latino community. The indigenous aren't even part of the conversation.
That is true.
Aren't part of the conversation. It's their land. And we talk about this is our piece and this is our land. We need to go to Canada and make it the 51st state. And we need to do this. And we like the descendants are still here.
Yeah.
And no one is talking about them. Where is our indigenous supermodel that everybody knows her name? Where's our indigenous pop star that everybody knows her name? Where's our indigenous movie star that everybody knows their name? They're not even part of the conversation. It's their land. So I can't ignore those people.
Yeah. So, how do you define blackness in supernatural space? Is it rebellion, rootedness, ancestral power? How do you define the blackness in supernatural?
I think it's freedom.
Mm.
I mean, think about it. That power gives you freedom, right? In any sense, right? People always talk about Black joy.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Not a lot in my book, but it's wildly important. And I think having that freedom of knowing, that freedom of identity, that freedom of like, this is who I am, and who I am is good and meaningful. I think that's a freedom in its just in its own thing. Like it's just the liberation to just feel good enough about who you are and to be in your skin and to just step outside with your head held high and feel good in who you are.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't do that. And I feel like that's something that is super important in the real world. And so if we're starting to talk about ancestral power and we're talking about, spirituality and blackness in that, I think that's the overwhelming thing for me is the freedom of it.
So, did you draw from real life African spirituality or cosmology um, when building the spiritual system in your books?
Yes.
Why?
The spiritual system that Gertie believes in is an actual spiritual system in Africa.
Dorisha.
Yes. So I wanted to give her with the Almighty God robe and the Pangul that she prays to. Those that's real religion. I wanted to make sure that it was specific and that it was authentic because I knew I was creating all this new stuff, right? Yeah. Like I'm taking Ramunga and I'm turning it into something of my creation, and I'm shifting and I'm moving things around and I'm like playing with all of it. But I wanted there to be that piece that was real, especially with Gertie, because that's the only thing she has to hold on to. Her family is gone.
Yeah.
She's concerned Willie is gone and left her. Like that's all she has. She has that and she has her baby. And that's it. So I wanted that to be rooted in truth. But yeah, I definitely took liberties with everything else.
How do you think power, both mythical and human, gets reshaped when told through a black lens?
I know in my case, I think it's the rage.
Mm.
You know, because we have a ton of European revenge stories,
Mm-hmm.
right? And everybody loves them. Great, sounds good. Count of Monte Cristo is fantastic, awesome.
Yes.
But when you tell a story of revenge, rage from the black perspective, oh my god, it's crazy. But like, who has more rage? You know,
That is
like
true.
like you look at the things that have I mean, even within like this country, the things that no one talks about, like the Tulsa massacre that happened in 1921, that no one wants to talk about. The whole idea that Lake Lanier in Georgia is this beautiful resort, and there is an actual town underneath the lake that no one talks about. Like, I feel like a lot of the history of black folks, especially in this country,
Yeah.
is hey, um, we're going to go over here.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to leave you alone. Leave us alone.
Mm-hmm.
We just want to be left alone.
Yeah.
You're right. We're not good. Whatever time. Just leave us alone. We're going to leave you alone. We're going to go over here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what happens is we go over here and we get left alone and we do well. And then they're like, well, then Darky gets away. That ain't right. And then all of a sudden things are getting burned and like I don't know a story about mobs of black people stringing up white dudes in trees. I haven't heard that story. I don't know if that happened. I know.
Right. Right.
But you know, like it's I do.
Yeah. Do you see the supernatural in your story as metaphor, realism, or something just entirely something else?
You know what? Maybe it's all of it. You know, I mean, I know when I wrote it, I wanted to write a badass vampire,
Mm-hmm.
the raw and violent and bloody. I wanted just violent vampire creatures. Um, I wanted it to be badass. I come from movies. I wanted it to be cinematic. I wanted people to sit there and read the book and cheer while they're reading. I wanted it to be the kind of book people would read that don't read books because it was so let's go, right? That's what I
It
was trying to
was.
do. And as I hear people who reach out to me so kindly and tell me what they took away from it, it's deeper. It affects people deeper. And I'm humbled and grateful for that. And people are pulling things from it I didn't even see. And I think that's the joy of being an artist
Mm-hmm.
is
Yeah.
is you create this thing and people go, oh hey, I saw this. I felt this. And it's like, oh my God. You know, it's so gratifying to know that you can connect with people, that you
Mm-hmm.
can reach people that you know what I mean? So I think it's all of it. I
I
really do.
I honestly, with me, I just when I say it was like a spiritual warfare, it's like it resonates now, not as the slavery part, the bondage
Yeah.
that we're beholden to unintentionally based off of the system that we're in this country. Then it's also the code switch that we have to maintain to appease so we are not those stereotypes angry black man, angry black woman. And it also is you have to have discernment of those who you trust or keep around in your circle, because there's always one trying to fit in and get above the rest, or may covet what you have and can't understand why you got it and not them. So those are some of that, and that was just like three little things that I took from the book, because there was a plethora of things that I took from the book. Um, you incorporated the males. Clarence, let's talk about Clarence. Clarence and what was her name? His wife, the master's wife,
Charity, Charity, yeah.
Charity. And that scene when Irene was at the shed and she saw what was happening to him, and it showed in the commonality in which she goes through with the master, and that his wife was doing it to this man, and she was just like in shock. Like, I know they do it to us, but a woman doing that to a man, and that it was just so many things to take away. So like I said, I love the book. I love the book. Did it have me in my feelings? Absolutely. Absolutely. I had to put it down a couple of times because it was giving me Rosewood and I was just getting angry. I was getting angry. But I had to finish it because there were so many lessons within that book, and it resonates with life as we know it now.
Right.
It just may not be the same circumstance, but the situations mentally are the same. Mentally.
Isn't that bad?
And that's crazy. That's crazy.
Right?
Yes.
That is, you can be in 1710.
Yes.
Still dealing with and going through the same emotions.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
what?
Listen, I know it's an uncomfortable book. And I'm not going to say it was by design, but I will say everything that was in the book, everything there is intentional. Because it has to. And outside of anything else that's deeper, it's necessary story-wise.
Yeah.
Because I go in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you're going to end where we end, beginning has to be the beginning.
And I think that's the problem. I think that's the problem. Books like yours, books like Octavia Butler, books, even James Baldwin, books that
naming these brilliant authors the same breath as me.
I'm saying, because I'm not gonna hold you. I read a lot of books, but supernatural, paranormal, sci-fi, and fantasy and horror is like my favorite books. So when I come across a Black author, and I don't even read historical fiction, not like that, but when I come across an author who has a synopsis, because I'm more of a synopsis type person that really catches me, I dive head first. And you could have asked anybody that knows me. I was like, they have not answered me on that guy. What the fuck is going on? I need this book. I don't care about none. And then I was like, you know what? I'm ordering this hardcover. I want this book. And when I finally got it on NetGalley, the way I dived into this book, head first, I didn't give a shit about nothing else. I was just like, this is got to be the most amazing. I have been talking about this book since you announced, since I saw anything. I was just like, this is gonna be my book. And it is. It is one of my number one faves for the year. I really took some real historical lessons from your book, equated it to what's happening now. I was like, damn, this is some real ass shit. This is real. And I would hope every Black, white, purple, green, blue person reads it, because it's a really damn good book. Because all I kept thinking about, damn, this is like eye-opening, like Octavia Butler's book. I kept saying that. And that's my opinion. That's how I feel. So let me ask you this. What responsibilities do you feel when adding supernatural elements to real Black historical trauma?
I think, you know what? Let's get into it. There's a thing called trauma porn.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not right.
Mm-hmm.
I I hoped that I would not do that.
Mm-hmm.
To me, trauma porn is trauma,
Mm-hmm.
trauma, trauma, the end.
Mm-hmm.
What I wanted to do was present the trauma as it was,
Mm-hmm.
not sugarcoat it. And that was important to me because there's so much going on. Even when I first started writing the book back in 2020, there's so much going on where everybody's making light of what slavery was.
Mm.
Like people are like, oh, well, it wasn't that bad, and they were like good slave owners, and like, if the slaves were loyal, they didn't have nothing to talk about. They didn't have to worry about it. You know what I mean? It's like, well, no, these are people that were minding their own business on another continent. Folks had to get on ships,
Mm-hmm.
and they had to sail across oceans,
Mm-hmm.
go to this continent so that they could take people,
Mm-hmm.
put them on ships, put them in chains, put them to work. Right? It's not like, I mean, that alone is horrific, right? So to show that, the truth of it, the horrendous stuff that people lived through, not like, oh, I'm making this up. Oh, hey, what if I made it really bad? I didn't make it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't make it really bad. Like, this is the stuff that happened.
Yeah.
And to me, to show the stuff that happened and to avenge it, like, just to avenge it, to me, that is what really resonates in a story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, I mean, listen, most folks have seen Les Miserables.
Yeah.
Right? Dude stole a loaf of bread, went through hell for a loaf of bread.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the show. I listened to them sing for 4 hours about it. You know what I mean? A loaf of bread.
Yeah.
What we went through was a little more than just stealing a loaf of bread.
Yeah.
To me, it's like, let me show what really went down. None of this like sugar coated. Oh well, what's like this truncated, like this abridged.
Mm-hmm.
This is how bad it was.
Yeah.
This is what Willie does to avenge it.
Yeah.
And end it.
Yeah.
Because that's what he does. He ends it.
Yeah.
You know? And that's what should have happened. It should have been ended. And this power is the power that could end it.
It should. But you know what? Your characters, I'm going to say this. Gertie reminds me of I want a seat at the table, or I'm going to make my own table type thing. Whereas Willie reminds me of I'm building my own foundation and we're going to build on it. That's their dynamic to me.
Yeah.
As far as their mentality of how their thought process was. Because Gertie, at times, I was just like, girl, shut the hell up. Shut the hell up. You're pissing me off. Shut the hell up. And then there was times where Willie, I was like, boy, if you don't stop and just do this shit, fuck them people. And those are the reactions from reading this book. Because sometimes I was with Gertie, and then sometimes I was like, girl, Shut the hell up.
So, but
Get
see,
on
but
program.
right? I mean, that's real though. Like,
Yeah.
if you're talking about a huge decision.
Mm-hmm.
It's massive. Willie knows, and so does Gertie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have to die.
Mm-hmm.
Only way this happens, I gotta die first. That's the
Right.
first step. I gotta die. And as awful as life in bondage was,
Mm-hmm.
we're human. Like, that instinct for survival is strong. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And it's like, I gotta die.
Yeah.
And you have to die.
Yeah.
I am carrying your child.
Yeah.
You said you wouldn't leave,
Right.
but
Right.
you're going to die.
Right. See, I got
And
it. I got that part. I got it.
right.
But it's what got me was it took her to go through so much to come to the realization. Now I understand what he was talking about. And
Yeah.
I understand there are people around us that always have hope that it's going to work out. That always have this hope, this extreme personal light that they have. It's going to work out. You just got to wait for it. But then Willie's like, I got the means to make it happen now.
Right.
And you're telling me to wait and continue to endure? What will our child have to go through? Are you insane type deal? But I love you. So you're putting me in this position. And that's where I was just like, girl, shut the hell up. Stop talking to these people, shut the hell up. Because you're irritating my soul. Shut the hell up. You can ask my husband. My husband say, I was like, baby. She doing too much. She doing too much. I literally was like, she is doing. Shut the hell up, girl.
I love that. I love that. But, like, you know what? Again, that's real. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
listen, if you tell somebody something
Mm-hmm.
and you want a solution to a problem, but it's not the solution they want,
Mm.
they will double down on telling you no.
Yeah.
That's real.
I
And
thought
that's
that
what
was
she.
selfish.
Yeah.
I
But
thought
see,
it was selfish.
that's the reader interpretation.
No,
You know what I'm
at
saying?
first I did think it was selfish, but then I understood when she got to talking about her village and she started saying how they were, and then she was talking about the Orishas. So she had faith in
Mhm.
what the Orishas was going to do for them. She had faith that she was protected underneath the Orishas. I got it then, but
Right.
before that happened, I was like, "Oh, girl, shut the hell up." You is working my last good nerve. Say one more thing. I'm coming through this book. I that's I was like, woo. She was a character that most people would be like, oh my God, girl, shut the hell
Yeah.
up.
Yeah,
Until
I
you
get it.
read her, you read further down, and you was like, oh,
Yeah.
I get it.
People tend to fall into two teams.
Mm,
Um, there's Team Birdie.
mm-hmm.
Obviously, you are not in.
I am on the fence with her.
And then there's Team Irene.
I am not a team Irene, nor am I a team Gertie. I'm on the fence with Gertie because I get where she's coming from on a spiritual level, because it spoke to my hoodoo heart.
Mm-hmm.
So I get where she was coming from. It was just wrong time. Wrong time. Wrong time. But with Irene, the reason why I'm not team Irene was because even though she was at her wits end and she thought the only way out was the only way out,
Mm-hmm.
and even with her doing what she, to help and all that stuff, the reason I'm not team Irene is she never spoke to any of the other women until they started snickering at her so loudly she heard. And then she was like,
Right.
and then when You know, her back was against the wall. Then she told the whole truth. I'm not I'm not black enough. I'm not white enough. You know, what am I to do? What else can I do?
Right.
And my thing was, you had ample time to say that.
Mm-hmm.
You had
Mm-hmm.
ample time to say that, but you chose not to say that. So that leads me to believe that it takes for your back to be against the wall to even side with your people.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
And again, real.
I
I
know.
mean, I know folks like that, but see, like that's the thing, and I feel like that's the thing that makes the book so sort of like conversational.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
because you have these characters that are making decisions, and you don't necessarily agree with those decisions, you know,
Mm.
but they are still authentic decisions,
Mm.
and you know it's still like because you think about if you think about like okay like as an actor, right,
Mm-hmm.
the whole point of being an actor, my acting coach told me back in the day, it's like you are your character's attorney.
Mm.
That is what performance is. You are there to plead the case for your character, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we look at Irene in that aspect,
Mm-hmm.
Irene is alone in the house
Mm-hmm.
because everybody knows she's getting preferential treatment from Big Jim because he's
Mm-hmm.
right. They're not getting anything from it, and
Mm.
so she gets to live in her own little space. Never mind the fact that that's the space she gets raped in,
Mm.
and she gets to have little trinkets and like little better clothes and better food and stuff.
Yeah.
What's the price that she's having to pay for it?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to say, "Hey, Irene, I feel you. I understand where you're going at.
Mm.
Who's doing that?" Everybody's just saying like, "Oh, I guess you think you're special." So she
Yeah.
feels she's alone to the
Yeah.
point where she's like, "Okay, you know, fuck it. I'm just going to kill myself."
Yeah. And I
Right?
get that. I swear to God, I get all that. It was just, it took her back to be against the wall. It took her for them to be snickering behind her back so loudly that she heard, for her to say anything. And,
Right.
you know, even though they couldn't even protect her if they wanted to from the situation she was in, to me, she felt alone because she chose to feel alone. Because she gave herself no outlet to talk to someone else because she felt they wouldn't understand. But aren't you not all in bondage? Aren't you not all going through the same thing? Because just as that happened to you, that was happening to Gertie.
Yep.
You know, so I
How often
I just
and
eh.
I feel because you're not wrong. You're absolutely right about it. But that's to me, those are the things that make these characters so intriguing.
Mm,
Because as the writer, as the reader, you can be like,
yeah.
but they don't. They don't. They don't.
Yeah.
And you
It's
know what I mean?
it's hard. It's hard. So, okay. How deeply did you dive into historical records and oral stories or personal heritage to get this story right?
So I like I said, I did my research, but it was all driven by story.
Mm-hmm.
So it started where, okay, this is where I want the story to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then it came, does the research match where I want to go?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how it happened. So I would move forward with the story and then I would back it up with the research. And then if I needed to adjust, then I would adjust. The
Okay.
one part of the book that I really just what's the word? Um, I compilated
Mm-hmm.
was the scene in the church.
Mm.
I saw a bunch of interviews
Mm.
that were in the late 20s and the early 30s, where folks interviewed Black folks who had been enslaved.
Mm-hmm.
Ask them, what were you taught about religion while you were enslaved? What happened? Who spoke to you? Did you go to church? So I took the things that were told to those men and women and put together the church scene. Those were actual things that were said to enslaved.
That was hard. That was another hard chapter. Um, cause Black Rage is a motherfucker. And Penelope, Eddie. Whew,
You ain't got a book if you ain't got problems. So
look, I was like, I would have sent that bitch soaring through the sky. Like, Daddy, tell her to stop looking at me. And I can't say the word she said, but tell her to stop looking at me. Listen, you know how many bitches I called this girl in this as I was reading this? I literally was so just angry. I was like, I had to look at myself, like, self, who's she talking to? Who he talking to? And when that pastor got to talk, who are you talking to? And what version of the Bible is this? Oh, Jesus. You wrote a good book when people are just angry. Because I was just every time Penelope said anything, I was just like, please shut this little girl up. Because it was just, and it was like she was repeating it like it was biblical. Like, for real, biblical. Like, and God said, where is this chapter in the Bible?
Yeah. But again, I think we've all seen or encountered or dealt with or known Penelope.
Yeah.
I mean, it's taught stuff.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's still happening too.
People can be exhausting. Especially the self-righteous ones, but they could be exhausting. Do you find yourself confronting your own emotions while writing about enslavement and brutality?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I spent a lot of time in between writing, listening to K-pop because I needed complete and pure escape, and K-pop feels like 80s pop music to me.
It is.
With words that I don't understand.
Definitely.
Into it, and it's great, and it frees my brain, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Because and here's the thing, and this is also a little bit sad, but even listening to Black artists while I was writing this was emotional. Because these are the descendants of these people, you know what I'm saying? And it's just like,
yeah,
these are their, and I know where it's coming from, and I know what's underneath it, and it was too much to bear emotionally. Not that I don't love it, but it was too much to bear. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But without having connection emotionally or ancestrally to K-pop, I could just,
yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I get that.
With Single Point, I'm watching Singaporean TV, and I'm just like, oh, this is great. Oh, okay, cool. I got my subtitles on. I can just get
Yeah.
lost and just free it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's yeah. I mean, you can't. I don't think you can write this stuff
Mm.
without feeling it, especially when you're like reading through um, the research and you're seeing the things and you're literally having to say to yourself, "Oh, I can't put that in.
Oh.
Can't do that."
Okay. So, what do you feel people often misunderstand about slavery that your book tries to correct or illuminate?
The insidiousness of it, the horrificness of it. Like, Disney put out this movie right back in the day called Song of the South,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like half cartoon, half real life thing. You got like Uncle Remus running around singing, woo, singing a song. I was like, no, man, no. Like, what are we talking about? You know, you will swing low, sweet. No, man, no. No, sorry. No. No, this was horrific and brutal and terrible. And the thing is, if you talk to anybody, you just go down the street, pick a random American, and you talk to them about the Holocaust.
Mm.
Most likely, they're gonna be, "Oh my God, it's terrible. Oh my God, just horrific. Just Hitler and
Yeah.
complete 100% automatically sympathetic.
Yeah.
Not them, not their people."
Mm.
But you bring up slavery, random person. Why we gotta make it about race? Why we gotta talk about this all the time?
Yeah.
Like,
No one tries to get over it.
like, come on, man. You weren't a slave. I didn't own any slaves. Like, everybody's making excuses for this horrendous thing.
Mm.
And I'm not going to say slavery was worse than the Holocaust because none of it should have happened.
Mm-hmm.
But this was a brutal time in history, and it lasted 250 years.
Yep.
250 years. Holocaust didn't last 250 years.
No.
So I think it's important that people understand that this stuff happened.
Yeah.
Humans decided to do this to other humans.
Mm. Mm.
And it's weird. This isn't like a romantasy book. It's not this like don't write this dark fantasy on like this distant planet that doesn't exist. Like this happened.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no part of it that is right.
Yeah.
And you got people, well, Africans, they sold the slaves. They
I
sold this.
hate hearing that.
And it's like, okay, you know what? Even here's the thing. Okay, cool, man. That's great. That happened. But that makes it okay.
Right.
If you come home and your wife has been brutally murdered and like chopped up to bits, do you want me to say, well, that happened to the dude across the way not too long ago, so what's the big deal?
Yeah.
Right? Like it's atrocious anyway. Either way, it's atrocious. So let's just deal. Let's just sit with that. Let's just deal with the fact that this is real.
Yeah. So, were there any truths or stories that you were scared to include or felt the world wasn't ready for?
Yeah. There's the stuff I left out.
Mm.
The stuff I left out. The stuff that had to do with infants, the cannibalism, a lot of stuff. The fact that some of which we still have today were designed to be maps to escape.
Yeah.
Not talks about that either. Like women literally would style hair and you could see the way out. Like this is the map. This is how they hit it.
Yeah.
There's just, I mean, it's the amount of horrificness. Yeah, I mean, yes, I do get and understand that what is in the book is horrendous and difficult to read.
Mm-hmm.
By research that happened.
Why did you choose the genre specifically? Why historical supernatural fiction? Like instead of just one a different one. Why that one?
You know what? I didn't choose it. The story demanded it.
Mm.
I spent my time as a screenwriter writing interpersonal relationship stories.
Mm.
I did stuff that, for lack of a better name, a guy like Woody Allen would have done.
Mm-hmm.
From a Black perspective. Nobody wanted it. So when this story happened, it was like, okay, there's vampires.
Yeah.
And I'm back in time, and it chose me, because I used to tell my wife all the time, like, I wish I could write horror or make all the money. I wish I could. I wasn't good. It was not a thing for me, but this dictated everything else, and that's why. And now that I'm here, I love it. Like, oh my God, are you kidding me? I can use power from like supernatural elements and like, so I'm into it now.
Yeah.
But it chose me.
So what part of the African diaspora mythos do you see yourself diving into past vampires?
I would love to get deeper into the mythology of gods and goddesses. I'm taking a little bit in the second book. Can't say more than that, but there's some more mythology in the second book. But yeah, that's the thing I really do. My wife's name is Isis. She's got a ton of like statuettes and stuff of the goddess Isis. So many of those guys, and that's just Egyptian, right?
Yeah.
Then you also have like just African as a whole, and then there's like West, and there's like Nigeria, and there's like Ethiopian. Right? There's so much stuff mythology-wise that I don't think anyone's talked about or explored or put on a massive stage. I think that's why you see a lot of Chinese descendant authors selling books on mythology because you don't know it. You never seen it before. Right? It's new. It's fresh. You know what I mean? Who wants to see another story about Zeus? Like, I got it. Cool. Get it.
Unless it's Shango.
Right? So, I think that would be very cool to dive deeper with that mythology and the stories.
You know what I would love for you to write? Yeah. The mythos of Anansi.
Ooh.
I would love for you to do a story about him. I think that would be, after reading your book, and then I'm thinking about the Orishas, and I'm thinking about the African gods, and I'm thinking about the mythos of the African pantheon. That is one that I think I would love for you to write.
I'm gonna have to look into that. You're gonna have to send me a message and give me a little starting point to go.
Oh, research. Don't worry, I'll give you a whole bunch of books.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I would look. He's a spider, but he's a trickster. He is the original. He's not Loki. Loki is him.
Okay. Okay. See, I can all right, so my agent, uh, she basically sort of explained to me like this is how publishing works. 'Cause
Mm-hmm.
I, uh, and she was like, let's get you branded. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, what does that mean? She was like, you've done historical. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. She said historical, horror, and you are giving voice to people that have no voice, which is the
Mm-hmm.
exact thing the wife said, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we can establish this as a brand, historical horror and giving voice to people that have no voice, then we can solidify it. Readers know what's coming. You know,
Mm-hmm.
read the book, okay, I know where I know I'm going back in time. I know
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be her. I know I'm going to get action, and I know I'm going to hear about somebody or hear from somebody who I've never heard from before.
Mm.
So what you're talking about completely fits that because I get to live in historical. And here's the thing: it kind of feels like a cheat to do historical because I don't have to worry about stuff that gives me anxiety. Like I get anxiety if I think about having to write a book in modern time because I'm like, okay, how do you get away with murder? We have cell phones, we have internet. Like, how do you kill somebody and get away with it? Like, there's no way to do it. Let me go back in time where they don't have all of that stuff, and then I can just slaughter people. This is the whole time.
So, all right. So, where do you see yourself going after this? Like, will you continue this particular genre? Could we get a paranormal?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I want to. Obviously, I'm doing this branding thing. Um, and the next book that I've written is also a historical horror where I'm taking a real life person and I'm taking their story and I'm flipping it, which
Mm,
is brand is. But yes, paranormal.
mm,
We have something that sticks paranormal into one of my favorite films. Um, because it's always been a terrifying film to me, even though it's not a horror movie.
what's that?
There is a movie, I think it was done in 1950, and it's called Sunset Boulevard.
Mm,
And it is about an old Hollywood star in the 50s who's fading. And there was a screenwriter who she hires to come to her mansion and write a movie for her.
mm,
It's a great movie, but it freaks me out. It freaks me out so bad. Like
mm,
it totally. Yeah. It's not a horror movie. It's just like it's like a drama about this old woman. She's trying to hold on to her glory. And this young dude who's trying to figure out how to make his way in Hollywood. He's going to
mm,
use her to do it and all of this, and it's really good. But to me, it's way freakier than anybody else I know who's seen the movie.
mm.
So I want to inject what freaks me out about it into the story.
Okay. So, what's the goal always to be traditional?
Say again?
Was the goal always to be traditional?
You mean traditional publishing?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes. I'm
Why was
not
that the
smart.
goal?
I'm not smart enough to be a self-published author.
Not, I'm not smart enough.
I'm not. That takes so much savvy and know knowledge and wherewithal because you have to do everything. Uh, I know how to write the books. That's
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 as good as it's gonna get.
people have to come in. Okay, now do this, now do that, now go do. I would not have been able to figure it out. No way.
So, what advice would you give someone who wants to write in historical, supernatural, or horror, historical horror, or anything like that, what advice would you give them in regards to them starting out?
No history.
Mm,
No history first. Understand history first.
mm,
Don't rely on what you're being told, especially if it's a black author, because they are going to wild extremes to erase race.
yeah. Yeah.
Wild. So it's like, no, no, no. Go learn history. You know what it is. Figure those things out. Read everything. Understand all of it. Talk to your parents. Talk to your grandparents. Talk to your uncles. Talk to your aunts. Anybody that can give you a perspective of what it was like then is invaluable if you're going to be writing this work.
Yeah.
Because there's so much stuff that has happened.
Mm-hmm.
You get to deliver some real stuff and it will inspire your supernatural level. It certainly has.
So, what conversations do you hope the book sparks, especially within Black literary spaces and even white literary spaces? What conversation do you hope that people take away or just engage in?
I hope people will shine a brighter light on real history.
Mm,
Like, let's talk about it. Let's get into it. Like let's talk about what really happened. Like, why are people so upset?
mm,
If you want to make the statement that um, if you want to make the statement that it should be gotten over because you are not a slave and I've never owned any slaves, so what's the big deal? Find out why people are still upset.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like, let's find out why. We're so quick to dismiss. Let's find out why.
Yeah.
People, talk about reparations. Oh my God, reparations. Well, let's find out. Listen, hey, nobody likes to talk about the fact that in the 80s, Ronald Reagan paid reparations to the Japanese Americans that were descendants to the folks that they put in concentration camps here in America.
Facts.
They
Facts.
did that.
Yeah.
But we talk about reparations. Oh, well, let's.
I have an answer to that. I think because they still consider us property. And anybody can take what they want to take from what I just said. That if you're listening on the inside or on the outside of the TikTok, I don't care. This is my show. I say what the fuck I want. And I said what I said. I said what I said and I meant it. Meaning wholeheartedly. Damn it.
It's your show. It's your show.
I literally think because a social security number, what is it? It's almost like a serial number. It goes back to where it was made, property of. So that's just my take on that.
Yo, it's your show. I think that stuff is important. I think it's important to understand that you can be fine, you can be okay, and still have rage. You can still kind of live with rage and still operate because it's not a victim. Listen, if black folks were true victims, right?
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't have Beyonce. Michael Jackson. We wouldn't have Prince because we would just been stopped. We can't do anything. So folks are doing things. That history, you can't really escape it. And the question is, why can't you escape it? So that would be my first thing. My second thing would be break as many rules as you can when it comes to the supernatural stuff.
Be a rebel without cause.
Yeah, we've seen it. We've seen it all. Like, okay, cool. So yeah, and there are people that say, okay, well, you have to know the rules in order to break them. Cool, learn
Mm.
the rules. But everybody, especially like doing vampires, like everybody has their interpretation of what a
Mm.
vampire. You know what I mean? And there's vampire purists, or what? But
A vampire what?
oh yeah, there's vampire purists. Yes.
What the hell is a vampire? What?
A vampire purist, nearest I can tell, is a person who believes that vampires should be approached and written and created uh, in the traditional way. As far as I can tell, the traditional way is European. So if you are doing vampires, it has to traditionally follow the European track of what vampires
You know, that just made my eye jump.
are.
Wait, wait, wait a minute. Woo, woo, woo. What?
On fictional creatures. I mean, but again, we've seen this before, right? What's girl's name?
Are you talking about for
Um,
Little Mermaid, Halle Bailey?
Purists.
Yeah, yeah. That's insane. Don't be that delusional, y'all. Please. Wow. Wowzers. I do want a group of friends that I can sit down who read this book. Like about 5 of us. And sit down and we can talk about it because there's so much to talk about. So many different aspects to talk about. So when does the book officially drop?
Officially, we dropped July 29th, which is less than 2 months away.
I already pre-ordered my hardback.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, we try to make a little bit of noise with this one. See if we can't get on some of those
Y'all,
lists.
it's on NetGalley, y'all.
Let's see if we can't get folks in New York to put us on a list, if you know what I'm talking about.
Look. It's so much I can say about those lists, but I'm gonna be nice today. I'm gonna be nice. But once in this show, I'm gonna be nice and not say what I want to say. Because when you pop off, I want to be able to come and actually, interview you in person without them looking like this motherfucker was wild. No. Like now. She ain't even in the running. Now.
You gotta remember the folks that were first.
True. So where can people grab your books? Like grab a copy for pre-order?
So we are on Barnes and Noble website. We are on Amazon. There are a lot of local bookstores that are carrying the book as well. So you can go on your local bookstore's website and see if they've got it. If not, you can request it from them. But we're as far as pre-orders go, we're pretty much everywhere you can find books. And as far as I know, it's also international. We're on Waterstones in the UK. We're on Readings in Australia. I've seen the book on Korean websites for pre-order. I've seen it on Thai websites for pre-order.
Okay.
So we're out there. We're definitely out there for sure.
Okay. I just want to say everybody need to read this goddamn book. Y'all got to read this book. I really don't go this hard. I go hard for books, but this is one of those books that is so enlightening and so just will have you in your feelings, but at the same time it'll be like a light bulb goes off. Like, damn, that's some real ass shit. For real. Because there's a few times I was just like, damn, that's some real shit. That shit still happening today. So I read the book, y'all. Will you be on tour when the book comes out or before it comes out? Will you be on tour or virtual appearances, and where can we go to hear you talk about the book in person?
As far as I know, right now, I know that I will be in Ohio
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the month at the big Ohio Booktalk, doing a panel and signings. I will be in Philadelphia. Um, Starts June 29th at the American Library Association.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's something that's being planned in San Francisco, closer to the date of release.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're trying to put something together at a local Barnes and Noble store here where I live in Santa Monica.
Mm-hmm.
As of right now, those are the only things that I'm aware of. I'm sure as we get closer, there will be more things.
Yeah.
People following me on Instagram, just my name, Markus Redmond, MarkusRedmond. Everything I'll be shouting from there mostly.
Yeah.
From there, I'll shout from TikTok, I'll shout from Threads, and it's all the same. I'll be in New York in November. There's something called Horror on the Hudson, which is a author reader retreat. They're doing a panel and talking about the book directly after Halloween, so kind of excited about that. But I guess I'm sure as we get closer, there'll be more things happening. And of course, if the book um, captures the interest of the country, I'm sure there'll be even more places where people will want to say, hey, what's going on? Hopefully, it will become the conversation piece.
I hope so. I hope so. And I hope two things that I hope for. One, I hope you sign at the Joint here. It's a black-owned, women-owned bookstore here in Chicago. I hope that you wind up. I hope they send you here to Chicago, not just Barnes and Nobles, but like the Joint, and come here, and so you can sign at the black-owned bookstore here in Hyde Park. And two, I hope that when I stalk your agent to get you on the Hornet Mansion Fantasy Masquerade event that the Boozy Book Tour is doing. That in October in 2027.
Email her, let her know what's going on. Like I said, that's the year the third book comes out. So
email her. I am going to do follow-up emails for probably however long. Because I was like, I'm gonna send this email tomorrow after I do the interview. I already got it written up. I just gotta hit send. That's it. That's all. I waste no time. Yeah. I would love for you to be at our fantasy event. So
it sounds so cool, and I would love to do some stuff in the South.
Yeah,
consider set in the South.
Yeah, cool in the South. And it's right in Savannah, Georgia. That's what we having in it.
There you go.
So, how can readers follow your journey? Your social media handles. You gave us some of your social media handles. What about your website? Do you have a newsletter? Any of those things?
So I'm very lazy when it comes to the newsletter, but I am on Substack. So I'll probably be putting something up on Substack in the next few weeks.
Okay.
The website is being worked on.
Okay.
So we're not up yet, but we're working on it because there's aesthetics and I'm trying to figure out, because it's got to be about more than just this series. It's got to be more about just the Blood Saga.
Yeah.
More to me as an author. So we're still trying to figure that out. But for right now, Instagram, TikTok, and TikTok, I have to say, you included, I really want to express my complete appreciation for the support that the TikTok community has given us. I mean, I've had so many people make videos about this book.
Yeah.
And it's been overwhelming, but I am so appreciative of it and so humbled by it. And I'm so glad that it's touching people and it's reaching people. I know it's not an easy book. You know, I know you don't just go sit on the beach and read this. So I'm glad that it's something that people feel worthwhile and something that people are interested in exploring. So thank you for.
You are so welcome. You deserve all the support, honestly. And this is a hard read, but it's a good read. If I wanted a hard read, I'll just watch Twilight and watch the damn vampire sparkle. That's a hard pill to swallow. Okay? Because I have questions. Why the fuck are you lighting up like a goddamn Christmas tree in somebody's living room? That's where that's a hard one right there. You know, I'm just saying. And why is she underage? What is
This
happening?
is what I'm saying. This is what I'm talking about. I don't understand.
Right. What is happening?
I don't understand. Like even Dracula, like the Dracula movie they made in '92, and they had Gary Oldman playing Dracula, and they had Winona Ryder playing,
and she was underage.
Yes, like I'm like this is what vampires do. They wear leather coats and like scheme on like.
I need them to leave me out the group chat. Leave me out the group chat. Saying hell. Well, on that note, I'm gonna get my outro out of here, and you do not have to stick around because I have some housekeeping to do, and that shit like take forever. But I just want to say to everybody that is listening, from the screen to the page, Markus Redmond is reminding us that our stories, even when wrapped in spirits and shadows, are grounded in truth. The book is more than fiction. It's a reckoning. It's a calling, and it's a reminder that freedom often begins within. Thank you for bringing us this mirror, the fire, and the voice.
Wow, thank you.
You are so welcome. And like I said, I appreciate you for coming on here. Y'all pre-order the book. And if you can't wait, go to NetGalley, but leave a review, goddammit.